The poor girl was going to be hanged, but when the king saw her necklace, everything changed. The market square accusation. The morning mist clings to Winchester's cobblestoned market square like a shroud, the early autumn air carrying the scent of fresh bread and livestock. Church bells toll the 7th hour as merchants arrange their wares with practiced efficiency. The square buzzes with the comfortable chaos of commerce, wheels creaking over stone, vendors calling their prices, chickens squawking in wooden cages. Teresa stands behind her modest wooden stall, her slender fingers arranging bundles of dried herbs with meticulous care. Her dress, though patched at the elbows and frayed at the hem, is clean and carefully mended. Dirt smudges her left cheek, where she brushed away morning sweat, but cannot diminish the striking beauty of her features. High cheekbones that catch the morning light, emerald eyes that seem to hold depths of unspoken wisdom, and auburn hair tucked beneath a simple linen cap. Her hands, though calloused from years of work, move with an unexpected grace as she ties lavender stems with rough twine. "Feverfew for the headaches that plague you," she calls out, her voice carrying a musical quality that makes passers-by pause. "Willow bark for joint pain, chamomile for peaceful sleep." The crowd around her stall is modest but loyal. Elderly women who've known her since childhood, young mothers seeking remedies for colicky babies, labourers nursing injuries from their trade. She knows each by name, asks after their families, remembers their ailments from previous visits. Martha, a haggard mother with dark circles beneath her eyes, approaches hesitantly. She clutches a fevered infant to her chest, his laboured breathing audible even above the market's din. The child's face is flushed red, tiny fingers grasping weakly at his mother's worn shawl. "Teresa," Martha whispers, shame colouring her voice. "My boy burns with fever. I have only 2 pennies to my name." Without hesitation, Teresa reaches for specific herbs, elderflower, white willow bark, and a precious bit of peppermint. Her movements are sure, learned from years of practice and an intuitive understanding of healing arts. She bundles them in clean cloth, adding extra portions when Martha isn't watching. "1 penny is sufficient," Teresa says firmly, pressing the bundle into Martha's trembling hands. "Steep these in hot water, not boiling, mind you. Give him 3 small sips every hour. The fever should break by nightfall." "But you said 2 pennies last week for the same—" "I was mistaken last week." Teresa's eyes hold Martha's, communicating what cannot be said aloud. That charity given openly would wound the woman's pride. "My memory isn't what it was. Go now before the fever worsens." As Martha hurries away, clutching the herbs like treasures, the atmosphere in the market shifts perceptibly. Conversations die mid-sentence. Merchants suddenly become fascinated with their own wares. The cheerful chaos transforms into tense silence as hoofbeats echo against stone. Lord Sigismund arrives with calculated grandeur, his black destrier prancing as if trained to emphasize its rider's importance. 4 guards flank him, their chainmail glinting dully in the morning sun, hands resting casually but meaningfully on sword hilts. Sigismund himself is a study in ostentatious wealth, silk robes of deep purple trimmed with gold thread, multiple chains of office draped across his broad chest, rings on nearly every finger catching light as he gestures. His face might have been handsome once, but years of indulgence have softened his jawline and reddened his nose. His eyes, small and calculating, scan the market square with the proprietary air of a man who believes everything he sees belongs to him by right. He dismounts with deliberate slowness, his boots, soft leather, impossibly clean, clicking against cobblestones as he approaches Teresa's stall. The crowd parts before him like water, some bowing, others simply shrinking away. He stops directly in front of her table, lifting a bundle of lavender with 2 fingers as if it might soil his hands. "Such lovely herbs," he drawls, his voice carrying the false warmth of a serpent's hiss. He inhales deeply, his eyes never leaving Teresa's face. "Though not as lovely as the hands that gathered them," Teresa's spine straightens imperceptibly, but she maintains her merchant's demeanor, offering a proper curtsy. "You honor my humble stall, Lord Sigismund. How may I serve you today?" "Serve?" He steps closer, close enough that she can smell the wine on his breath despite the early hour, see the broken blood vessels in his eyes. Such an interesting choice of words. There are many ways you could serve. The implication hangs in the air like a blade. Several nearby merchants find urgent business elsewhere, abandoning their stalls rather than witness what might come next. Only old Agnes, who sells vegetables 3 stalls down, remains within earshot, her weathered hands gripping her walking stick tightly. "My taxes are paid in full, my lord," Teresa states, her voice steady, though her knuckles whiten as she grips the table's edge. "The record keeper has my seal. I operate within all market laws." "Laws," Sigismund muses, picking up a sprig of rosemary, twirling it between his fingers. "Such tedious things. Perhaps we could discuss your situation in more comfortable surroundings. My chambers have a lovely view of the river. We could share wine, speak of arrangements that might benefit us both. I thank you for your kind offer, my lord, but my herbs require tending. They wilt if left unattended." She moves to organize bundles that need no organizing, creating distance between them. Sigismund's expression darkens, red creeping up from his collar like spilled wine. He steps around the table, backing her against the wooden post behind. "You dare refuse the king's appointed tax collector?" "I refuse nothing, my lord. I simply have work that requires my attention." Her voice remains respectful, but there's steel beneath the courtesy. "Your work," he sneers, reaching for her wrist with thick fingers. "Selling weeds to peasants. I offer you silk, comfort, protection." Teresa pulls her hand away with a swift motion that surprises them both. "I need no protection, my lord. I am a law-abiding subject of the crown." The silence that follows is absolute. Even the birds seem to stop singing. Sigismund's face transforms from red to purple, veins standing out on his forehead like cords. His hand moves to his sword hilt, not drawing, but reminding everyone present of his power to do so. "You forget yourself, girl. Your betters are speaking." "I forget nothing, my lord, including my place." She meets his gaze directly, not defiant, but unflinching. "I am a simple herb seller, nothing more, and I wish to remain so." For a moment, violence crackles in the air, like lightning before a storm. Then Sigismund smiles, a cold, calculating expression that's somehow worse than rage. "Search her belongings," he commands his guards, voice carrying across the square. "I suspect this merchant of theft." "Theft?" Teresa's composure finally cracks. "I've stolen nothing. This is the word of a peasant against mine." Sigismund's smile widens. "How much weight do you think that carries?" The guards move with practiced efficiency, overturning baskets, scattering carefully organized herbs across muddy ground. Dried flowers are crushed beneath boots, precious medicinal roots ground into worthless powder. Teresa watches months of work destroyed in moments, her face pale but dignified. Then, dramatically, too dramatically, one guard reaches beneath the stall and emerges with an ornate silk purse, purple with gold threading. The royal seal is prominently displayed on its side. The purse is heavy, coins clinking musically as the guard holds it high for all to see. "Well, well," Sigismund's voice drips with false surprise. "What have we here? A royal treasury purse with, let me count, 40 gold crowns inside, more than you'd earn in 5 years of honest work." "That's not mine." Teresa's voice rises in genuine shock. "I've never seen that before. Someone placed it. Who would place 40 gold crowns beneath your stall?" Sigismund turns to address the growing crowd performing for his audience. "We have a thief among us, bold enough to steal from your king." Agnes finally finds her courage, hobbling forward on aged legs. "This is wrong. I've known this girl for 10 years. She would never—" "Silence, crone!" Sigismund whirls on her, hand on sword. "Another word and you'll hang beside her. The penalty for stealing from the crown is death. Would you share that fate?" Agnes falters, tears streaming down weathered cheeks, but she holds Teresa's gaze. In that look is apology, love, and desperation. Young Thomas, one of Sigismund's guards, shifts uncomfortably. Barely out of boyhood, his armor still sits awkwardly on his thin frame. "My lord, perhaps we should investigate further." "Are you questioning my judgment, boy?" "No, my lord, I simply—" "Then put her in chains." "Now." Thomas's hands tremble as he produces iron shackles. "Forgive me," he whispers as he approaches Teresa. She holds out her wrists with quiet dignity, chin raised, eyes dry, despite the horror of her situation. The shackles are cold and heavy, the iron biting into soft skin. As they close with a definitive click, sealing her fate, she speaks loud enough for all to hear. "I am innocent. God sees the truth, even when men choose blindness." Sigismund laughs. "God? Where was God when you stole 40 crowns? Save your prayers for the gallows, girl. You'll need them there." Ata Diastur, the dungeon's first night. The castle dungeons exist in perpetual twilight, carved from limestone so ancient it weeps constant moisture. Water drips somewhere in the darkness with maddening regularity. Drip, drip, drip. Like a water clock counting down to execution. The air is thick with the scent of mold, human waste, and despair accumulated over centuries. Torches in iron sconces provide the only light, casting dancing shadows that make the walls seem to breathe. Teresa sits in the corner of her cell, knees drawn to her chest, iron shackles still weighing down her wrists, though they're no longer necessary. The cell door is locked with a mechanism that would challenge even an experienced thief. The straw beneath her is damp and fetid, alive with insects she doesn't want to identify. Somewhere in the darkness, rats scurry with the confidence of creatures who know they own this domain. She hasn't touched the cup of brackish water, or the heel of bread left hours ago. Her throat too tight, with fear to swallow. Her stomach churning with the injustice of her situation. Her fingers unconsciously find their way to her throat, touching something hidden beneath the rough collar of her dress, a leather cord worn smooth by years of handling. Thomas appears at her cell door like a ghost, his young face gaunt in the torchlight. He glances nervously over his shoulder before producing a key with shaking hands. For a moment, Teresa thinks he means to free her, but he only opens the door enough to slip inside, bringing fresh water and bread that doesn't smell of mold. "I shouldn't be here," he whispers, setting down the provisions. "Lord Sigismund would have me flogged if he knew." "Then why are you?" He meets her eyes for the first time, and she sees guilt there, deep and consuming. "My sister. She bought medicine from you last winter. Her son was dying of lung fever. Every healer said there was no hope, but you saved him, charged her nothing when you saw she'd sold her wedding ring to pay." "Little Marcus," Teresa remembers, managing a small smile. "He had bright eyes, reminded me of a sparrow. How is he?" "Alive, healthy, because of you." Thomas sits on a wooden stool just outside her cell, suddenly looking even younger than his years. "Lord Sigismund, this isn't the first time. There was a baker's daughter 2 summers ago. Mary, her name was, pretty like you. She refused his advances, said she was promised to another. What happened to her? Same as you. Suddenly found with stolen goods, hanged within a week." His voice drops even lower. "Then there was the seamstress, Catherine, the visiting merchant's wife, Eleanor. All beautiful, all refused him, all dead." The pattern is clear, horrifying in its simplicity. Teresa's hand tightens on the hidden cord at her throat. "And the king allows this?" "The king." Thomas glances around again, as if the very walls might report his words. "King Edmund hasn't left his chambers in months. Some say illness, others say poison. Lord Sigismund handles all matters of justice now. He speaks with the king's voice, acts with the king's authority. A king who doesn't know his people suffer isn't much of a king. Careful, such words are treason." "What does it matter? I'll hang tomorrow regardless." Thomas winces. 3 days. The execution is in 3 days. Lord Sigismund likes to let the condemned think about their fate. A bitter laugh escapes her. How merciful. Movement in the corner catches their attention. An old prisoner, Garrett, chains himself in the deeper shadows. His hair is wild and grey, his clothes mere rags, but his eyes are sharp with intelligence. He's been so still they'd forgotten he was there. "Pretty jewelry won't save you from the noose, girl," he says, his voice like grinding stone. "They strip you bare before the hanging. Take everything. I've watched from my window, dozens over the years. Young, old, guilty, innocent, all end the same." Teresa's hand drops from her throat. "It's all I have of my mother." "Your mother?" Garrett shuffles forward, as much as his chains allow, squinting in the dim light. "Let me see it." With trembling fingers, Teresa pulls out the cord, revealing what hangs from it, a silver pendant unlike anything that should belong to a common herb seller. It's exquisite work, the kind master craftsman might labor months to complete. A swan, wings spread in flight, intertwined with a blooming rose, every petal distinct, every feather defined. The silver seems to glow with its own light, untarnished despite its apparent age. Garrett's intake of breath is sharp. "Girl, where did you get this?" "My mother. She died birthing me. Father said she pressed it into his hand with her dying breath, made him swear I'd have it." "Your father? What was his name?" "William. William the blacksmith." Garrett's chains rattle as he pulls back suddenly, as if the name burned him. "William the castle blacksmith? Built like an oak, gentle as a lamb, could forge anything from memory alone? You knew him?" "Knew him. Girl, I was assistant to the master of horse when William worked the castle forge. 20 years ago that was. The night Queen Catherine died, God rest her soul, William disappeared, took nothing but the clothes on his back, left everything, even tools he'd made himself. We thought him mad with grief. He loved the Queen, we all did. She was kind to servants, remembered our names." Thomas leans forward, intrigued despite himself. "The old Queen died in childbirth, didn't she?" "That's what they told us," Garrett says slowly, studying Teresa's face with new interest. "The babe died too, they said, but strange things happened that night. The physician who attended her died a week later. Sudden illness. The midwife vanished entirely. Only Lord Sigismund, young secretary then, seemed to know exactly what happened. Sigismund was there. Oh yes, helpful young man he was. Organized everything while the king grieved, arranged the funeral, comforted the king, took on more and more duties as his majesty retreated into sorrow." Garrett's eyes narrow. "Rose quickly after that night. Very quickly. Teresa's mind races, pieces of a puzzle she didn't know existed, beginning to form shapes in the darkness. You're suggesting—" "I'm suggesting nothing, girl. Old men ramble, that's all." But his eyes remain fixed on the pendant. "That craftsmanship, though, that's royal work, certain. The swan and rose together, that was Queen Catherine's personal symbol. King gave it to her as a wedding gift. She never took it off. Never." The cell falls silent except for the eternal dripping. Thomas looks between them, understanding dawning on his young face. "If Queen Catherine never removed it, and it's now around your neck—" "Une coincidence," Teresa says quickly, but her voice lacks conviction. "My mother was a traveler. Perhaps she bought it or found it or perhaps," Garrett says softly, "William the blacksmith didn't disappear alone that night." The king's illness. The royal chambers occupy the entire upper floor of the castle's east tower, a series of interconnected rooms that once rang with laughter and music, but now feel more like an opulent tomb. Heavy tapestries block every window, creating perpetual dusk regardless of the hour. The air is thick with the scent of medicinal herbs and incense meant to mask the underlying smell of prolonged illness. King Edmund lies in a bed that could hold 6 men, looking lost among silk pillows and fur coverlets. Once tall and strong, renowned for leading charges in battle, he's now a shadow of his former self. His skin has a greyish pallor, stretched thin over prominent bones. His hair, once golden brown, is now more silver than anything, lying limp against his skull. Yet his eyes, the same green as Teresa's, though none would notice, still hold intelligence and deeply buried pain. Master Cromwell, the royal physician, hovers nearby with the concerned efficiency of a man fighting a losing battle. His robes bear the stains of countless medicines. His fingers are permanently discolored from grinding herbs, and his face shows the exhaustion of sleepless nights spent trying to solve an unsolvable puzzle. He checks the king's pulse with practiced fingers, frowning at what he finds. "Your Majesty's heart beats irregularly again. You must rest." "Rest?" Edmund's laugh is bitter, ending in a cough that brings up flecks of blood he quickly hides in a handkerchief. "I've done nothing but rest for months, while my kingdom rots around me." Lord Sigismund enters without knocking, a liberty that would have meant death years ago, but now passes without comment. He carries a stack of documents, each requiring the royal seal. His expression is one of practiced concern, hiding satisfaction beneath a mask of servitude. "Your Majesty looks better today." He lies smoothly, approaching the bed. "The morning light agrees with you." "There is no morning light in here, Sigismund. Hasn't been for months." Edmund tries to push himself up on his elbows, fails, falls back against the pillows. "What requires my attention?" "Minor matters, Majesty. Nothing to trouble yourself with overmuch." Sigismund arranges the documents on a side table, producing a quill and ink. "Trade agreements with Normandy, tax assessments for the northern provinces, and a matter of justice. A thief caught stealing from the treasury." "From the treasury?" Edmund's brow furrows. "How did a thief access the treasury?" "She didn't, Majesty. She stole a purse of gold crowns from Lord Morrison during market day. The fool was counting tax collections publicly, an invitation to thieves." "She?" Edmund's voice sharpens slightly. "A woman?" "A young woman, yes. An herb seller who thought her pretty face would protect her from justice." Sigismund's tone is dismissive. "She hangs in 3 days." Edmund closes his eyes, and for a moment his face shows such profound weariness that even Sigismund pauses. "So much crime these days. When I was young, when Catherine lived, the people seemed happier, less desperate. Times change, Majesty. The people grow greedy, forget their place. It requires a firm hand to maintain order." "Your hand, you mean?" "I serve at your pleasure, Majesty. Everything I do is in your name." "Yes," Edmund murmurs, eyes still closed. "In my name." "How many have died in my name while I lie here, Sigismund?" "Only those who deserved it, Majesty." Master Cromwell, who has been preparing a tonic in the corner, speaks carefully. "Your Majesty, perhaps attending this execution would be beneficial. The people haven't seen you in months. Rumors spread when a king becomes invisible." "What rumors?" Sigismund's voice carries a warning edge. "That His Majesty is dead, that you rule through a puppet, that the kingdom has no true king anymore." Cromwell meets Sigismund's glare steadily. "Surely Lord Sigismund agrees that the king's presence would silence such dangerous talk." Edmund opens his eyes, looking between his physician and his administrator. "You think I should watch a young woman hang?" "I think you should remind the kingdom that Edmund Lancaster still rules," Cromwell says firmly, "even if you must be carried there, Majesty. Sometimes the appearance of strength matters more than strength itself." "Nonsense," Sigismund interjects quickly. "His Majesty is too ill for such exertion. The stress could kill him." "Or invigorate him," Cromwell counters. "Sometimes a king needs to remember he's a king." Edmund studies Cromwell's face, seeing something there, urgency, warning. "This herb seller, what's her name?" "Does it matter?" Sigismund asks. "Everything matters. What's her name?" "Teresa, from Westbrook Village." "Teresa." Edmund repeats the name slowly, as if tasting it. "Very well. I'll attend." "Majesty, I must protest." "Noted, Sigismund, but I'll attend. Have my litter prepared." He manages a ghost of his old commanding tone. "And open those damned curtains. If I'm to see death, I'd like to remember what life looks like first." As Sigismund storms out, barely concealing his fury, Cromwell approaches the king's bed. He speaks in a whisper. "Your Majesty, your illness. I've been studying it. The symptoms are unusual. Speak plainly, old friend." "They match certain poisons. Slow-acting ones, the kind that weaken gradually, make the victim dependent on those around them." Edmund's eyes sharpen. You're suggesting I'm being poisoned. I'm suggesting your majesty should be very careful who pours your wine. Cromwell glances at the door where Sigismund departed, and perhaps wonder why some people benefit from your weakness. The second night. The dungeon has grown colder as night deepens, and Teresa huddles in the corner of her cell, William's journal spread across her lap. Agnes managed to slip it to Thomas, who brought it with trembling hands and urgent whispers to be careful. The pages are worn, some water-stained, filled with the cramped but careful handwriting of a man unaccustomed to letters, but determined to record truth. By the flickering torchlight she reads aloud, her voice barely above a whisper, "The babe hasn't stopped crying for hours. I know nothing of children. My hands are made for forge work, not cradling infants. But when I look at her eyes, so green like her mother's, I know I cannot fail. Lady Catherine trusted me with more than her life. She trusted me with her legacy." Thomas sits transfixed outside the cell, while Garrett has moved as close as his chains allow. The journal continues. "They believe the child died with the Queen. Lord Sigismund himself announced it. Tears on his young face that didn't reach his eyes. I saw him counting coins later that night, gold from the Duke's own purse. The physician who attended the Queen looked sick with more than grief. Guilt ate at him like plague. When I confronted him, he begged me to take the child and run. 'They'll kill her true if she stays,' he said. 'The Duke wants no competing heir.' So I took her, wrapped in common cloth instead of royal silk, and fled into the night." "Dear God," Thomas breathes, "you're truly—" "I'm the daughter of William the blacksmith," Teresa interrupts firmly, but her hands shake as she turns the page. The next entry is dated weeks later. "The babe thrives on goat's milk and honey water. I've named her Teresa, after my own mother. If anyone asks, she's my brother's child, orphaned young. I've moved to Westbrook, far enough from Winchester that none know my face. My heart breaks for Prince Edmund. To lose wife and child in one night would destroy any man. But if he knew his daughter lived, Sigismund and the Duke would hunt her down. Better he grieve for the dead than lose her twice." Garrett speaks into the heavy silence. "I remember that night clear as yesterday. The castle was in chaos. Queen Catherine had been healthy throughout her pregnancy, riding until her 7th month, walking the gardens daily. Then suddenly, during labor, everything went wrong. Poison, Thomas says quietly. It had to be poison." Teresa continues reading. "I write this knowing I may take these secrets to my grave. The pendant, Catherine's wedding gift from Edmund, burns against my chest where I hide it. I should destroy it, but I cannot. Someday, when the world is different, when she's old enough to understand, I'll tell Teresa who she truly is. Or perhaps I'll die a coward, letting her live safe in ignorance. God forgive me either way." The final entry, dated just months before William's death. "Teresa grows more like her mother every day, not just in beauty, though she has that in abundance, but in spirit. She heals the sick, helps the poor, stands against injustice even when it endangers her. I've taught her to read, to write, to think, skills unusual for a blacksmith's daughter but essential for a princess in exile. Lord Sigismund has risen high in court, they say. The Duke died last year, but his son lives, waiting. If they knew Teresa existed, I grow old, my strength fails. I pray I've given her enough wisdom to survive when I'm gone. The pendant remains hidden, but I've told her it was her mother's dying gift. At least that much is true." Teresa closes the journal, tears streaming down her face. "He loved me. Knowing who I was, what danger I brought, he loved me as his own. More than that," Garrett says gruffly, "he saved the rightful heir to the throne. That makes him the greatest hero England never knew. It makes him my father," Teresa says firmly. "Blood or not, William the blacksmith was my father." Thomas stands suddenly pacing the narrow corridor. "This changes everything. If King Edmund knew—" "He can't know," Teresa interrupts. "You heard the journal. They'd kill me before accepting the truth. Sigismund has spent 20 years building his power. He won't let one girl with a pendant destroy that. But you're the rightful princess. I'm an herb seller condemned to hang, without proof beyond this journal and a pendant, claiming royal blood would only make them kill me faster. Then what do we do? Before anyone can answer, footsteps echo down the corridor. Not the measured tread of guards, but shuffling, uncertain steps. A figure emerges from the darkness, Master Cromwell, the king's physician, carrying a medical bag and trying to look official. "I'm here to examine the condemned," he announces to the guard at the main door. "Lord Sigismund wants her healthy enough to hang properly, can't have her dying of fever before justice is served." The guard, half asleep and uninterested, waves him through. Cromwell approaches Teresa's cell, but his eyes are sharp with purpose. "Let me see your neck, girl." "My neck? For swelling. Fever often starts there." But his eyes convey a different message entirely. Hesitantly, Teresa approaches the bars, pulling down her collar slightly. The pendant gleams in the torchlight. Cromwell's breath catches, his hand reaches through the bars, not for the pendant, but for her face, turning it toward the light. He studies her features with the intensity of a man seeing a ghost. "Mother of God," he whispers. "Catherine's eyes, Catherine's chin. How did I not see it before? You knew the Queen? I delivered her, helped bring her into this world, was meant to help her bring her daughter into it, but—" His voice breaks. "I was sent away that night. Sigismund said the Queen wanted only the royal physician, but Catherine had asked for me specifically just days before. I should have fought harder, should have insisted." "The royal physician who died a week later?" Cromwell nods grimly. "Poison! I'm certain of it now. The same poison that's killing the king slowly. Nightshade mixed with hemlock, tiny doses over time. Makes the victim weak, confused, dependent. You must tell him." "Tell him what? That his administrator is poisoning him? With what proof? Sigismund controls access to the king, filters all information. And now—" He looks at Teresa with wonder and sorrow. "Now I find the king's daughter in a dungeon, set to hang by the man who killed her mother. Can you get word to the king?" "I've tried. Every letter intercepted, every private audience denied. Sigismund has built a wall around Edmund brick by brick until the king knows only what Sigismund wants him to know." "Then we're lost," Thomas says despairingly. "Not yet," Cromwell says, pulling a vial from his bag. "This is an antidote to the poison. If I can get it into the king's wine, if he can regain even a portion of his strength—" "He's attending the execution," Garrett says suddenly. "First time out of his chambers in months. If there was ever a moment for truth to surface—" Cromwell nods slowly. "Then we must ensure the truth is impossible to ignore." He looks at Teresa. "That pendant, keep it hidden until the crucial moment. When the king sees it, pray his love for Catherine is stronger than 20 years of lies." The gallows dawn. The morning of execution arrives dressed in fog, as if the heavens themselves seek to veil what's about to unfold. The courtyard has been transformed into an amphitheater of death. Wooden barriers keeping the crowd at a distance from the scaffold, guards positioned at regular intervals, their spears gleaming despite the dim light. The gallows itself has been freshly constructed for the occasion, the wood still pale and unmarked, the rope swaying gently in the morning breeze like a serpent waiting to strike. The crowd began gathering before dawn. Merchants abandoning their shops, farmers leaving their fields, nobles in their carriages claiming the best viewing positions. Public executions are theatre in this age, a morality play where the state demonstrates its power and the crowd finds entertainment in others' misfortune. Food vendors work the crowd, selling meat pies and ale. Children perch on their fathers' shoulders for a better view. It's festive and horrible in equal measure. Lord Sigismund has orchestrated everything with the precision of a man who understands that power is as much about perception as reality. He stands on the elevated platform beside the gallows, dressed in robes of deep crimson, the color of authority, of blood. His position is carefully chosen to be visible to all, yet higher than everyone except the condemned and the executioner. He's had musicians positioned to play solemn hymns, adding gravity to the proceedings. Even the executioner has been specially selected a giant of a man whose black hood and massive frame inspire appropriate fear. The magistrate, Lord Pemberton, stands to the side with his scroll of charges. An elderly man with trembling hands. He's clearly uncomfortable with the proceedings, but too fearful of Sigismund to object. Sweat beads on his forehead despite the cool morning air. "Bring forth the condemned." Sigismund's voice carries across the courtyard with practiced authority. The crowd parts as Teresa is led from the castle gates. They've stripped her of her outer garments, leaving her in only a rough shift that does nothing to protect against the morning chill. Her feet are bare against the cold stones, her hands bound before her with rough rope that has already rubbed her wrists raw. Yet she walks with a dignity that makes the crowd murmur in surprise. Her head is high, her stride measured. This is not the shuffle of a broken thief, but the walk of someone who has found peace with their fate, or purpose in their final moments. Agnes pushes through the crowd despite the guards' attempts to stop her, tears streaming down her weathered face. "God sees the truth, child," she calls out. "God sees!" Other voices join hers. Martha, whose child Teresa saved, the baker whose burns she treated, the seamstress whose birth she attended. They call out blessings, prayers, declarations of her innocence. The crowd's murmur grows louder, less festive, more uncertain. Sigismund raises his hand for silence. "Good people of Winchester, you see before you a thief who took from your king, from your taxes, from your children's futures. Let her fate remind all who would steal from the crown. Justice is swift and final." The magistrate unrolls his scroll with shaking hands. "Teresa of Westbrook, you stand convicted of theft from the royal treasury. 40 gold crowns were found in your possession, marked with the royal seal. By law of the realm, the sentence for such theft is death by hanging. Does the condemned have last words?" the executioner asks, his voice muffled by the hood but carrying surprising gentleness. Teresa steps forward to the edge of the platform, her green eyes scanning the crowd before settling on Sigismund. When she speaks, her voice carries clear and strong. "I die innocent of this crime. Lord Sigismund placed those coins beneath my stall because I refused his advances, as he has done to 3 women before me: Mary the baker's daughter, Catherine the seamstress, Eleanor the merchant's wife. All refused him, all died on these gallows. I pray God reveals the truth and protects other women from this fate. I pray the king opens his eyes to the corruption that surrounds him. And I pray that those who knew me remember that I lived with honor, even if I die with none." The crowd stirs uneasily. Some remember Mary, Catherine, Eleanor, young women, beautiful, who died protesting innocence. Sigismund laughs, but it sounds forced. "The desperate lies of a condemned thief. She seeks to stain an honest man's reputation with her final breath. Proceed, executioner." But before the hood can be placed over Teresa's head, horns sound from the castle gates. Not the simple brass of common soldiers, but the complex harmony that announces royalty. The crowd gasps and parts like a living sea as the royal procession enters the courtyard. King Edmund appears, and the shock ripples through the assembled masses. Those who haven't seen him in months can barely recognize the wan figure propped up in his litter, yet he's dressed in full royal regalia: crown, robes of purple and gold, the sword of state across his lap. His effort to appear kingly despite his illness is both heartbreaking and inspiring. Master Cromwell rides beside the litter, having successfully administered enough antidote to give the king temporary clarity and strength. Edmund's eyes, though sunken, burn with an intensity that hasn't been seen in months. "Your Majesty." Sigismund bows so deeply, his chains of office scrape the platform. "You honor us with your presence, though you shouldn't have troubled yourself. Yet here I am." Edmund's voice, though weak, carries the authority of bloodline and crown. "Stop the proceedings. I would see this thief who dared steal from me." The guards help Edmund from his litter. He waves them away after the first few steps, forcing himself to walk unaided, despite the obvious pain it causes. Each step is measured, deliberate, a king reminding his subjects that he still lives, still rules. He climbs the scaffold steps slowly, requiring all his will not to show weakness. As he approaches Teresa, the morning sun breaks through the fog, illuminating her face with golden light. Edmund stops mid-stride, his breath catching audibly. For a moment, just a moment, 20 years fall away, and he sees Catherine standing before him, young and beautiful and alive. "You," his voice is barely a whisper, "you have her eyes." "Majesty?" Sigismund steps forward, concern masking calculation. "You're unwell." The strain. Silence. Edmund hasn't looked away from Teresa's face. He moves closer, studying her features with the intensity of a man afraid to blink, lest the vision disappear. "What's your name, child?" "Teresa, your majesty. Daughter of William the blacksmith." "William the blacksmith," Edmund repeats slowly. "He worked in my castle once. A good man, loyal. Disappeared the night my wife died." As he speaks, his eyes catch something, the slight bulge at her neckline where something is hidden. His hand rises unconsciously to his own throat, where once a matching chain lay. "That necklace," he says, his voice stronger now. "Show it to me." "It's nothing, Majesty," Sigismund interjects quickly, moving to position himself between them. "A worthless trinket. We shouldn't delay." "I said silence!" Edmund's roar surprises everyone, including himself. For a moment, the dying king is gone, replaced by the warrior who once led armies. "Show me the necklace, child." With her bound hands, Teresa awkwardly pulls out the leather cord. The pendant swings free, catching the morning light. The swan and rose seem to come alive in the sun, silver gleaming like captured moonlight. Edmund's legs give out. He would have fallen if Cromwell hadn't rushed forward to support him. With trembling hands, the king takes the pendant, turning it over to reveal the inscription, worn but still readable: "Edmund and Catherine, forever bound, 1328. "Where did you get this?" His voice breaks completely. "My mother, your majesty. She died birthing me. My father said she pressed it into his hand with her dying breath, made him promise I'd have it always." "Your mother?" Edmund looks from the pendant to Teresa's face, back and forth, truth dawning like a terrible sunrise. "Dear God, oh dear God, Catherine," the revelation. "Your majesty is confused," Sigismund says desperately, sweat now pouring down his face despite the cool morning. "The strain of illness, hallucinations are common." "Clear the platform." Edmund's voice carries strength born of rage and revelation. "Everyone except the girl and Lord Sigismund. Now." The crowd reluctantly begins to disperse, but many linger within earshot, pressing against the barriers, desperate to witness what promises to be extraordinary. Thomas positions himself behind a pillar, where he can hear everything. Cromwell refuses to leave the king's side despite the order. Edmund cups Teresa's face in his shaking hands, tears flowing freely down his cheeks. "Your mother, tell me what your father told you about her." "Very little, Majesty. He said she was beautiful, kind, that she loved me more than life itself. He said she was a traveller who died on the road, that he took me in from charity." "A traveller?" Edmund's laugh is bitter. "William protected you even with his lies. He knew the truth would get you killed." He turns to Sigismund, and 20 years of suppressed suspicion suddenly crystallizes into certainty. "You told me my daughter died with Catherine." "She did, Majesty." The physician confirmed, both mother and child lost to childbed fever. The physician who died mysteriously a week later. Food poisoning, a tragedy, and the midwife who vanished that very night. She fled in grief, surely, or was silenced. Edmund's voice has gone deadly quiet. "You were so helpful then, Sigismund. So young, so eager. Your father had just died, leaving you his position. You handled everything while I grieved, the funeral arrangements, the death certificates, the comforting lies. I served you faithfully. You served my brother." The words hang in the air like an accusation of treason. Robert always resented being second-born. If I died without heir, he'd inherit. But I was young, healthy, with a beautiful wife pregnant with our first child. How inconvenient for his ambitions. "Oh, this is madness." Sigismund backs toward the platform's edge. Master Cromwell steps forward. Your Majesty, I've discovered something crucial. The poison killing you slowly, nightshade and hemlock, carefully measured. It's the same combination that killed Queen Catherine, only given in a single massive dose during labor. The crowd, which has crept back, gasps in horror. Edmund staggers, the full weight of 20 years of deception crashing down. You murdered my wife. You stole my daughter. You've been poisoning me slowly, keeping me weak enough to rule through. Lies, all lies. Sigismund draws his sword, but his hand shakes so badly he can barely hold it. Thomas emerges from his hiding place, unable to remain silent. My lord, I have testimony. My grandmother was a scullery maid here 20 years ago. She spoke on her deathbed of a crying baby in the servants' quarters the night the Queen died. A baby that disappeared with William the blacksmith before dawn. And I have this, Teresa says, producing William's journal from where Thomas had hidden it in his uniform. My father's confession. He wrote everything. How you paid the physician to poison the Queen during labor, how the plan was to kill me too, but William rescued me first. Edmund takes the journal with numb fingers, reading quickly, his face cycling through grief, rage, and devastating comprehension. 20 years, he whispers. And 20 years of mourning my wife and child while they lived, one in death, one in exile. He looks at Teresa with wonder and sorrow. You're my daughter. Catherine's daughter, the rightful princess of England. The crowd erupts in chaos, shouts of amazement, anger, disbelief. Some kneel instinctively, others push forward to see better. Sigismund laughs, high and hysterical. You think this changes anything? You think anyone will believe a convenient journal and a piece of jewelry? She's a peasant, a nobody. She's my daughter. Edmund roars. Prove it, prove any of it. It's the ravings of a dying king and a condemned thief. For a moment silence falls. Then Teresa speaks, her voice carrying the same authority that Edmund's once did. Then test me. Ask me something only royal blood would know. Edmund thinks. Then his eyes light with memory. The Queen's chambers had a secret, something she showed no one but me. Without hesitation, Teresa responds. Mother loved to hide messages in the window seat. She'd write poetry there at sunrise. Father said she wrote one the morning I was born, pressed the paper into the hidden compartment he'd built for her. Edmund gasps. No one knew that. No one but Catherine and the blacksmith who built it, Teresa finishes. On the Queen's own commission. William, Edmund breathes. He was Catherine's most trusted servant. The only one she'd have given that pendant to, the only one she'd have trusted with. His voice breaks entirely. With our daughter. The confession Sigismund backs against the gallows post, sword still drawn, but his aristocratic composure finally completely shattered. His face has gone from red to purple to a sickly white, and when he speaks, spittle flies from his lips. You want the truth? Fine, I'll give you truth. He laughs wildly. Your precious brother Robert paid me a fortune to ensure you died without heir. But you wouldn't die, young, healthy, devoted to that simpering wife. So we got creative. The crowd presses closer despite the guards' attempts to maintain order. Every word is being absorbed, witnessed, carried into history. Catherine was the easier target, Sigismund continues, past caring now. Women die in childbirth all the time. A little poison in her wine during labor. Who would suspect? The physician was eager enough when we tripled his fee. Monster! Someone shouts from the crowd, but Sigismund just laughs harder. Monster? I was practical. Your brother promised me lands, titles, power beyond my father's dreams, all for one dead queen and her brat. He points at Teresa with his sword. Except that fool blacksmith stole her before I could finish the job. We searched for months. Robert was furious. But what could we do? Admit we'd lost a baby everyone thought dead. So you've been poisoning me slowly instead, Edmund says hollowly. You made it easy, destroyed by grief, hiding in your chambers, depending on others for everything. A little poison here, a little there, just enough to keep you weak and compliant. I've ruled in your name for 5 years now. And the women you hanged, The false accusations. Sigismund shrugs. Benefits of power. They should have been more accommodating. Your daughter here just had to refuse like the others. Too much pride for a peasant. She's not a peasant, Edmund shouts. She's the rightful heir. She's nothing, a bastard raised in dirt. I was raised by an honest man who loved me, Teresa says quietly, but her voice carries. Who taught me right from wrong, who showed me that true nobility comes from actions, not blood. You've had every advantage of birth and wealth, yet you're the lowest creature here. Sigismund lunges at her with his sword, but 20 years of labor have given Teresa strength and reflexes that surprise them both. She drops beneath his wild swing, using her bound hands to strike his knee. He stumbles, and Thomas and the other guards immediately seize him. "Chain him," Edmund commands, his voice growing weaker as the temporary strength from Cromwell's antidote begins to fade. "Lord Sigismund of Lancaster, you stand accused of regicide, attempted regicide, conspiracy against the crown, and murder of innocents. You can't try me. I'm a lord of the realm. I demand trial by my peers." "Your peers?" Edmund laughs bitterly. "You have no peers. You're beneath the lowest criminal in my dungeons. They at least are honest about their crimes." He turns to the crowd, raising his voice with effort. "Let all here witness. This man murdered your queen, stole your princess, and has been slowly murdering your king. He corrupted justice, hanged innocents, and ruled through fear and lies. What does England say to such crimes?" The crowd's response is immediate and overwhelming. "Death! Death! Death!" But Teresa steps forward, raising her still bound hands for silence. "May I speak, father?" The word father ripples through the crowd like wind through wheat. Edmund nods, tears streaming down his face. "Lord Sigismund deserves death," she says clearly, "but death would be mercy. He'd die believing himself a martyr to ambition, a player in the great game who simply lost." She turns to face him directly. "Instead, let him live. Let him watch from the tower as the kingdom thrives without him. Let him see the daughter he tried to murder become the queen he could never be. Let him grow old, knowing his name will be remembered only as a cautionary tale of how low nobility can sink." The crowd murmurs, some approving, others wanting blood. Edmund considers, then nods slowly. "Wisdom beyond your years. Very well. Lord Sigismund will be confined to the tower for the remainder of his natural life. He'll be fed, clothed, allowed to live, but never again will he touch power, never again will he harm an innocent." "This isn't over!" Sigismund screams as guards drag him away. "There are others, my allies. They'll never accept a peasant queen." "Then they'll fall as you have," Teresa responds calmly, "one by one until justice truly rules this realm." Father and daughter. As Sigismund is dragged away, his screams echoing across the courtyard, Edmund's strength finally fails completely. He collapses, caught by Cromwell and Thomas together. Teresa drops to her knees beside him, her bound hands making her movements awkward. "Cut her bonds," Edmund gasps. "Cut them now." Thomas draws his knife, sawing through the ropes. The moment she's free, Teresa takes her father's hand, the first time she's touched him as daughter to father. 20 years, Edmund whispers, studying her face with desperate intensity, as if trying to memorize every detail. 20 years. I mourned you both. Every morning I visited empty graves, spoke to stones, begged forgiveness for failing to protect you. You didn't fail. William protected me as you would have. William. Edmund's eyes fill with fresh tears. I should knight him posthumously, build him a monument. He was more noble than any lord in my court. He was my father, Teresa says softly but firmly. Blood made me your daughter, but love made me his. He taught me to read by firelight, to heal with herbs, to stand for what's right even when it's dangerous. Every good thing in me comes from him. Then I owe him more than I can ever repay. Edmund touches the pendant at her throat with trembling fingers. This was my wedding gift to Catherine. I had it made by the finest silversmith in London. The swan was her favourite, graceful, beautiful, fierce when protecting its young. The rose was for England, but also for her, beautiful but strong, soft petals protected by thorns. Tell me about her. My mother. Despite his weakness, Edmund smiles. Catherine was sunlight. She laughed at my formal speeches, made me dance in the rain, convinced me to dress as a common man and walk among the people. How can you rule what you don't understand? She'd say. She was right. After she died, I hid in my castle. Let men like Sigismund filter the world for me. The crowd has pressed closer, listening with rapt attention to their king, speaking more honestly than he has in decades. She would have loved you, Edmund continues. Your courage, your compassion, the way you stood against Sigismund, even facing death. That was pure Catherine. She never backed down from bullies, no matter their rank. Agnes pushes through the guards, who no longer try to stop her. She drops into a deep curtsy. Your Majesty, Your Highness. I've known this girl since she was 9. William raised her right. She's healed our sick, fed our hungry, stood for our weak. Princess or not, she's ours. We claim her. Others in the crowd voice agreement. Martha, the baker, the seamstress's sister. These common people who knew Teresa as one of them now embrace her as their princess. Edmund struggles to stand, requiring help from both Cromwell and Thomas. Once upright, he addresses the crowd. People of Winchester of England, by God's grace and the bonds of blood, I present to you Princess Teresa Catherine Edmund Lancaster, true-born daughter of myself and Queen Catherine, rightful heir to the throne of England. The crowd's response is deafening. Some kneel, some cheer, some weep openly. The lost princess, stolen at birth, raised among them, returned at the moment of her greatest peril. It's a story that will be told for generations. But Teresa isn't looking at the crowd. She's supporting her father, feeling his weight increase as his strength fades. Father, you need rest. Master Cromwell, I need time, Edmund corrects gently. Time I don't have. The poison has done its work too well. But I have enough to see you recognized, to begin setting things right. He turns to Lord Pemberton, the magistrate who still stands frozen in shock. Send riders to every corner of the realm. Let all know the princess has returned. Let them know that those who supported Sigismund's corruption have one chance to confess and seek mercy. Those who don't, he looks at Teresa, will face their future queen's justice. The trial of conspirators. The Great Hall of Winchester Castle, 3 days later. The space has been transformed into a court of justice, with Edmund on his throne, despite Cromwell's protests. Teresa sits beside him in a chair, hastily elevated to near throne height. She refused to take the Queen's throne while her father lived. The hall is packed with nobles who've been summoned or came voluntarily, either to pledge loyalty or face accusations. Documents cover 3 massive tables, 20 years of conspiracy laid bare. Thomas, elevated to captain of investigation, presents evidence with the methodical determination of someone who discovered their calling. Letters between Lord Sigismund and Duke Robert, detailing payments for the Queen's murder. Bank records from Lombardy showing transfers to the physician. Testimony from 16 servants who witnessed suspicious activities that night. Lord Morrison, one of the most powerful nobles in the realm, stands accused. His wife died the previous year under suspicious circumstances after opposing certain trade agreements Sigismund favored. I knew nothing of the Queen's murder, Morrison insists, but sweat beads his forehead. Yes, I supported Sigismund's tax policies, but you supported them because he paid you, Thomas interrupts, producing more documents. 40,000 gold crowns over 5 years. Your wife discovered this, threatened to expose you. She died within a week. Morrison's composure cracks. I didn't know he would. I only wanted her silenced, not murdered. Teresa's voice cuts through his stammering. How exactly does one silence a wife without violence, Lord Morrison? He has no answer. One by one, conspirators are revealed. 17 nobles in total, their corruption spreading like rot through the kingdom's foundation. Some, like Morrison, claim ignorance of the worst crimes while admitting to lesser ones. Others, like Lord Blackwood, remain defiant. You expect us to bow to a peasant? Blackwood spits. She may have royal blood, but she was raised selling herbs. She knows nothing of governance, of nobility, of corruption. Teresa interrupts, standing. You're right, Lord Blackwood. I know nothing of taking bribes, of murdering innocents, of poisoning kings. If that's what nobility means, then I'm proud to be common. She addresses the entire hall. You question my fitness to rule because I was raised poor? Good. I've seen what your version of nobility brings. Suffering, injustice, death. I've watched children starve while you feast, seen families destroyed by your casual cruelty, witnessed justice perverted for coin. Pretty words, Blackwood sneers. But can you lead armies, negotiate treaties, manage the complex dance of international politics? Can you heal a dying child? Teresa counters. Can you deliver a breech birth with only herbs and prayers? Can you make a week's food last a month when winter runs long? Can you earn loyalty through kindness rather than fear? She pauses, letting her words sink in. We each have our skills, Lord Blackwood. Mine include knowing the value of every person in this realm, not just those born to titles. Edmund, despite his weakness, smiles with pride. Lord Blackwood, you stand accused of conspiring with Sigismund to defraud the crown of 60,000 crowns through false taxation. How do you plead? I plead that this is a farce, a dying king and his base-born. Careful, Edmund's voice carries warning. That's your future queen you're insulting. She'll never be my queen. Then you'll never be England's lord. Edmund's judgment is swift. Stripped of lands and titles, banished from the realm. You have 3 days to leave English soil forever. As Blackwood is dragged out, still shouting about peasants and pretenders, other nobles shift nervously. Some, like Lord James, Morrison's son, step forward voluntarily. Your Majesties, James kneels before both Edmund and Teresa. I knew my father was corrupt. I tried to stop him, but I was a coward. I offer my sword and loyalty to Princess Teresa if she'll have them. Teresa studies him carefully. You spoke against Sigismund last year. He had you flogged for it. 30 lashes. I still bear the scars. Then you've already paid a price for honor. Rise, Lord James. Help us rebuild what your father helped destroy. The hidden enemy. The War Council chamber that evening. Edmund, barely able to sit upright, insists on attending despite Cromwell's dire warnings. Teresa, Thomas, James, and a few trusted nobles gather around a map of England. 17 nobles arrested or fled, Thomas reports. But there are gaps. Someone coordinated this conspiracy beyond Sigismund and Duke Robert. My uncle died 10 years ago. Edmund muses weakly. The conspiracy should have died with him. Unless someone else took over, Teresa suggests, studying the pattern of corrupted nobles on the map. Look, they're all in strategic positions. Border lords, port authorities, trade route controllers. This isn't random corruption. It's systematic. A soft knock at the door interrupts them. A guard announces, Lady Margaret seeks audience. Lady Margaret enters, Edmund's younger sister, recently returned from France. She's elegant, composed, her mourning clothes for Edmund's declining health impeccable. She's been nothing but supportive since Teresa's revelation, helping identify conspirators, comforting her brother. Forgive the intrusion, she says smoothly, but I've received disturbing news. Prince Roderick of Scotland is riding south with 500 men. Scotland? Edmund tries to rise, fails. We have a treaty. Had a treaty, Margaret corrects. It seems Prince Roderick believes Teresa's revelation makes it void. After all, the treaty was signed when you had no heir. Now, she looks at Teresa with what seems like affection. Everything changes. He means to press his claim through marriage, James realizes. Wed the princess, unite the kingdoms. Over my dead body, Edmund growls, then coughs, blood speckling his lips. That may be his plan, Margaret says sadly. Brother, you must rest. Let others handle. I'll die on my throne before I let Scottish boots march on English soil, Edmund insists. Teresa studies Margaret carefully, something in her tone, her timing. Aunt Margaret, how did you learn of Roderick's march? Our scouts haven't reported. I have friends in Scotland. They sent a rider ahead. Margaret's answer is smooth, practiced, too practiced. Friends close enough to the prince to know his plans, yet loyal enough to England to betray them? Teresa presses. Margaret's smile doesn't waver. I've cultivated many relationships over the years, niece, not all of them obvious. Thomas enters urgently. Your Majesty's urgent news. Prince Roderick is here. Here, Edmund gasps. But you said he was riding south. He's in the courtyard, alone, requesting immediate audience. Everyone exchanges confused looks, except Margaret, whose expression shows the slightest flicker of satisfaction. The Scottish prince. The throne room, hastily prepared. Edmund insists on full regalia despite barely being able to stand. Teresa wears her mother's crown for the first time, a circlet of silver swans and roses that seems to glow in the torchlight. Prince Roderick enters with the confidence of a man who holds winning cards. He's everything a prince should be, tall, handsome, with the easy grace of someone raised to power. His clothes are rich but practical, his sword expensive but well used. When he bows, it's precisely calculated, respectful but not subservient. Your Majesty, Your Highness. His voice carries a slight Scottish burr. I come with an offer of alliance. With 500 men at our border? Edmund challenges. A misunderstanding. Those men are returning to Scotland as we speak. Roderick's smile is charming, revealing nothing. I came ahead alone to show my peaceful intentions. How noble, Teresa says dryly. And what intentions would those be? Roderick turns his full attention to her, and his charm doubles. To right historical wrongs, Princess. Your story has reached every corner of Britain. A lost princess, raised among commoners, nearly executed by corruption. It's like a ballad come to life. Life is rarely as simple as ballads, Your Highness. Indeed, which is why I offer something practical beneath the romance. Marriage between us would unite England and Scotland, end centuries of border disputes, create an empire to rival any in Europe. How generous, Edmund says, echoing Teresa's earlier sarcasm. And what of your father's role in my wife's death? For the first time, Roderick's composure slips slightly. My father, we've discovered evidence, Master Cromwell interjects. The poison that killed Queen Catherine. Your father purchased it. We have records. Roderick's face shows what appears to be genuine shock. My father, he died 3 years ago. He never spoke of murdering my mother. Teresa stands, descending from the throne to face him directly. Of conspiring with Duke Robert and Lord Sigismund? I knew nothing of this. Convenient. Princess, I was 5 years old when your mother died. Whatever my father's crimes, I've spent my life trying to be a better man than he was. Pretty words. Can you prove them? Roderick reaches into his coat, producing a leather portfolio. Letters from my father to Duke Robert, found hidden in his study after his death. I've been investigating quietly, trying to understand the full scope of the conspiracy. Edmund examines the letters, his face darkening with each page. These are authentic. Your father was deeper in this than we knew. Which is why I offer alliance through marriage, Roderick continues. Let our union heal the wounds our fathers created. Our union? Teresa laughs. We've known each other 5 minutes. Royal marriages are rarely about knowing each other. Perhaps that's the problem. She returns to her seat. Prince Roderick, I appreciate your offer, but I won't be bartered like cattle, even for peace. Return to Scotland. If you truly seek alliance, we can negotiate treaties that don't require me to share your bed. Roderick's charming mask slips, revealing calculation beneath. You refuse me. I refuse to be rushed. I've been a princess for less than a week. I won't make decisions that affect generations in moments. Other princes will come, Princess, less patient than I. Let them come. I didn't survive 20 years of poverty to be claimed like a prize now. Roderick bows, his expression unreadable. As you wish, but remember, refusing friends can create enemies. Threatening me already? How romantic. He leaves without another word, his footsteps echoing through the hall. Margaret, who has watched silently, speaks softly. You may have just made a dangerous enemy, niece. Or revealed one that already existed, Teresa responds. watching her aunt carefully. The king's decline, Edmund's chambers, 2 days later. The king hasn't left his bed since confronting Roderick. Cromwell works desperately, trying every remedy, but the damage from 20 years of poison is too extensive. Teresa sits beside the bed, reading from her mother's journal, discovered hidden in the window seat exactly where William had said it would be. Catherine's handwriting is elegant, flowing, full of life. "My daughter moves within me like a dancer," Teresa reads. "Edmund says she'll be graceful like her mother, but I know better. She'll be strong like her father, just like England needs." Edmund smiles weakly. "She was always the wise one. I was just the man lucky enough to love her." "Father, there's something else." Teresa hesitates, then continues reading. "I fear Lord Sigismund and Duke Robert plan something terrible. Margaret watches me with cold eyes when she thinks I don't see. If anything happens to me, Edmund must know. Trust no one, especially family." Edmund's eyes widen. "Margaret? But she was in France?" "Was she?" Teresa asks. "Or was that what she wanted you to believe?" Before Edmund can respond, Cromwell enters urgently. "Your Majesties, Lady Margaret requests immediate audience. She says it's about Prince Roderick." "Send her in," Edmund whispers, gripping Teresa's hand. "But stay alert." Margaret enters, her face showing perfect concern. "Brother, terrible news. Prince Roderick is dead." "Dead?" Teresa stands. "How?" "Assassinated on the road to Scotland. His men found him at dawn, throat cut. There was a message pinned to his chest." She produces a blood-stained parchment. "The Swan's daughter will wed whom we choose, or not at all." Edmund struggles upright. "There are still conspirators, hidden deeper than we thought." "It would seem so," Margaret agrees, her voice sympathetic. "Dear niece, you're in terrible danger." "From whom?" Teresa asks directly. "Unknown enemies are the most dangerous," Margaret responds. "Perhaps you should consider protection, isolation, for your own safety, like my father's isolation. That worked so well." Margaret's eyes flash, just for a moment, before returning to concern. "I only want to protect you from enemies you seem to know a great deal about," Teresa observes. "Tell me, Aunt, how did Roderick's men know to send word to you specifically?" "I told you. I have friends." "In Scotland?" "Yes. Friends who knew Roderick would die before it happened." The room falls silent. Margaret's mask of concern doesn't slip, but something changes in her posture. A predator recognizing another predator. "You're overwrought, niece. The strain of recent events." "The only strain," Edmund interrupts, his voice stronger than it's been in days, "is discovering how many vipers we've harbored in our midst." Margaret looks between them, calculating. Then, surprisingly, she smiles, a cold, genuine expression. "How long have you suspected?" "Since you arrived so conveniently just as Teresa was revealed," Edmund says. "You were supposed to be in France." "I was, until I heard rumors of a lost princess. I had to see for myself if Robert's great fear had come true, if the brat had survived." "You were part of it?" Edmund's voice breaks. "My own sister? Your younger sister. Your overlooked, dismissed, married off for alliance sister." Margaret's voice carries years of bitter resentment. "I was smarter than you, stronger than Robert, but I was born female. My intelligence meant nothing. My ambition was unseemly. So you helped murder Catherine." "I suggested it to Robert." "Men always think murder is their idea, but who do you think whispered in his ear about the succession? Who pointed out how convenient Catherine's death would be?" "Monster," Teresa breathes. "Survivor," Margaret corrects. "In a world where women can only rule through men, husbands, sons, brothers, I chose to rule through manipulation instead of marriage." The true villain revealed. Margaret moves to the window, looking out at the kingdom below. Her entire demeanor has changed. Gone is the sympathetic aunt, replaced by someone far more dangerous. "For 20 years, I've been the spider in the web. Robert thought he led the conspiracy, but I guided his every move. When he died, I took over completely. Sigismund believed he was in charge, but who do you think suggested each corruption, each murder?" "You killed Roderick," Teresa states. "Of course. He was too eager, too obvious. His marriage to you would have disrupted my plans. Which are? Margaret turns, smiling. My son returns from France next month. He's 12, malleable, perfect. In 6 years, he'll be of age to marry you. You'll rule as queen, but I'll rule through you both. I'll die first. No, you won't. Margaret's confidence is absolute. Because if you refuse, everyone you love dies. Agnes, Martha, that young guard Thomas who's so devoted to you. One by one they'll have accidents until you comply. You're mad, Edmund gasps. I'm practical. I've waited 40 years for power. I won't let a peasant-raised girl destroy that now. She pulls out a vial from her sleeve. This is the same poison that's been killing you, Edmund. 1 drop in wine, undetectable, untraceable. I have agents throughout the castle. Any servant could be mine. Any meal could be your last. You'd kill your own brother? I already have been. Just slowly enough that no one suspected. She approaches Edmund's bed. You could die tonight. Heart failure from the strain. So tragic. Or you could live a few more weeks, see your daughter crowned, die knowing she's protected by my power. Protected? You mean controlled. Same thing in the end. Teresa moves between Margaret and the bed. You won't touch him. I don't need to. The poison has done its work. He has days at most. Margaret's smile is cold. So choose, niece. Agree to my terms, or watch everyone you love die. There's a third option, Teresa says calmly. She pulls out her mother's journal, opening to a marked page. Mother wrote about you extensively, including your affair with the court physician 20 years ago. Margaret's composure cracks slightly. Lies. Really? Should I read the part where she describes finding you together, or where she notes the bruises on your neck from his passionate grips? Bruises others saw and remembered. That proves nothing. It proves you had access to the physician, influence over him, combined with the testimony we've already gathered, testimony from servants, commons, against the king's sister, and from nobles. Lord James has been investigating you for months. He has letters, Margaret. Your letters to contacts in France, arranging alibis. Your payments to assassins through Lombardy banks. Your web is extensive, but we've been mapping it. Margaret laughs. You think you've won? I have supporters throughout the court, the guard, the servants. One word from me. Your supporters have been arrested, Thomas announces from the doorway, entering with armed guards. We've been watching them for days, waiting for you to reveal yourself. Margaret pulls a dagger from her sleeve, lunging at Teresa. But 20 years of hard labor have given Teresa strength and reflexes that a pampered noblewoman can't match. She sidesteps, grabs Margaret's wrist, and twists. The blade clatters across stone. The difference between us, Aunt, Teresa says as guards restrain Margaret, is that you sought power for yourself. I seek justice for everyone. Justice and mercy. The throne room, the next morning. Despite Cromwell's protests, Edmund insists on presiding over Margaret's trial. He can barely stand, supported by guards, but his voice carries the authority of a king who has finally awakened from a long nightmare. Margaret stands in chains where Teresa stood just days ago. The irony isn't lost on anyone. The hall is packed with nobles and commoners alike. Teresa insisted the doors remain open to all. Lord James reads the charges. Lady Margaret of Lancaster, you stand accused of regicide, conspiracy to commit regicide, multiple murders, treason against the crown, and crimes too numerous to fully list here. How do you plead? Edmund asks. Margaret raises her head proudly. I plead that I did what any man would do for power. My only crime was being born female in a world that recognizes only male ambition. No, Teresa interjects, standing beside her father. Your crime was choosing murder over merit. You could have been a great advisor, a powerful voice for change. Instead, you chose to rule through fear and death. Pretty words from someone who inherited everything. I inherited nothing but a necklace. Everything else, trust, loyalty, respect. I earned selling herbs in the market, healing the sick, helping the poor. You were born with everything and chose to destroy rather than build. The trial continues for hours. Evidence is presented, letters, testimonies, financial records. Margaret's guilt is undeniable, overwhelming. Finally, Edmund speaks. "Lady Margaret, you are found guilty of all charges. The sentence for treason is death." "Then kill me," Margaret says defiantly. "Make me a martyr." "No," Teresa speaks again, surprising everyone. "Death would be mercy. You die believing yourself a victim of circumstance." She addresses the court. Lady Margaret will be confined to the tower's highest room for the remainder of her natural life. She'll have books, comfort, everything needed to survive, but no power, no influence, no ability to harm another soul. You think imprisonment is worse than death? I think watching the kingdom thrive under the rule of a peasant queen will be your true punishment. Every day you'll see from your window what you could have been part of, had you chosen differently. The Margaret screams as they drag her away. "You'll fail. The nobles will never truly accept you. The people will turn on you. You'll see." "Perhaps," Teresa acknowledges, "but I'll fail honestly rather than succeed through murder." The king's farewell Edmund's chambers, 1 week later. The trials are over. The conspirators sentenced or fled. The kingdom begins to heal, but its king is dying. Edmund lies in his bed, each breath a struggle, but his eyes are clear and peaceful for the first time in 20 years. Teresa holds his hand, while Cromwell tends to him, and the highest nobles of the realm gather to witness the formal succession. "My lords and ladies," Edmund speaks with effort but clarity, "I name Princess Teresa Catherine Edmund Lancaster my sole and rightful heir. Any who contest this will answer to the crown's justice." One by one, the nobles kneel. Lord Morrison, despite his own crimes, speaks first. "The princess has shown wisdom and mercy beyond her years. I pledge my loyalty." Others follow, even those who doubted her common upbringing, now convinced by her actions during the trials. Edmund beckons Teresa closer. "I have so little time left, but I must tell you something. William, he sent me a letter once. Anonymous, but I knew his hand. When? 5 years ago. It said simply, 'She lives. She thrives. When England needs her most, she'll return.' He knew you'd recognize his writing. He knew I'd never forgotten it. He was telling me to hold on, to survive until you could come home." Edmund's eyes fill with tears. "He saved us both. You from death, me from complete despair. Tell me more about Mother, everything you remember." So Edmund speaks of Catherine, her laugh that could fill a room, her fierce protection of servants, her midnight raids on the kitchen that scandalized proper ladies. He tells of their courtship, their wedding, their dreams for the future. "We were going to have 6 children, he whispers. She'd already chosen names. You were to be Teresa after her grandmother, a woman who rose from nothing to become the most beloved queen in French history. She sounds wonderful. She was, and she lives in you. Every time you stand for justice, every time you choose mercy over vengeance, every time you remember that royal blood means nothing without noble actions. That's Catherine." His breathing becomes more labored. Agnes enters with other common folk who knew Teresa. Martha, the baker, the seamstress's sister. Edmund had requested them specifically. "Your Majesty," Agnes says through tears, "we wanted to thank you for returning our girl to us." "Your girl?" Edmund smiles. "She was always yours. You raised her when I couldn't. You protected her, taught her, loved her. The crown owes you a debt it can never repay." As the sun sets, Edmund's strength fades completely. He looks at Teresa one last time. "Rule with your heart, but think with your head. Trust, but verify. And remember, a queen who doesn't know her people's struggles can't ease them. I'll make you proud, Father. You already have. From the moment you stood against corruption, even unto death, you've been the queen England needs." With his last breath, he whispers, "Tell Catherine, I kept my promise. I protected our daughter." King Edmund dies as the bells toll midnight, his hand in his daughter's, finally at peace. The coronation, Westminster Abbey, 1 month later. The ancient stones have been cleaned until they gleam. Banners of silver swans and roses hang from every pillar, and the space is packed with a crowd unprecedented in the Abbey's history. Teresa had insisted that commoners be allowed to attend alongside nobles, causing the clergy considerable consternation, but ultimately winning when she pointed out that Christ himself favored the poor. Teresa enters not from the royal door, but from the main entrance, walking among the people as one of them before ascending to royalty. She wears her mother's wedding dress, altered and embroidered with symbols that tell her story. Herbs along the hem for her common life, swans and roses at the bodice for her royal blood, and at her throat, always, the pendant that saved her life. The procession is revolutionary. Instead of nobles carrying her train, it's the women who knew her as a commoner, Agnes, Martha, the seamstress's sister. Instead of lords bearing the crown jewels, it's Thomas, now Sir Thomas, knighted for service, and other guards who stood for truth against power. The Archbishop of Canterbury presides, his ancient voice carrying through the hushed abbey. Do you, Teresa Catherine Edmund Lancaster, swear to rule this realm with justice, mercy, and wisdom? I swear it. Do you promise to protect all subjects equally, whether noble or common, rich or poor? I promise. Do you vow to uphold the laws of God and man, to defend the innocent, to punish the wicked? I vow. He raises the crown, not the heavy traditional crown of conquered kings, but a new one Teresa commissioned. It's lighter, combining the silver swans and roses with wheat stalks representing the common people, and oak leaves for strength through adversity. Then by the grace of God and the will of the people, I crown you Queen Teresa, first of her name, Queen of England and all her territories. As the crown settles on her head, the abbey erupts. The cheering comes not just from the nobles performing their duty, but from the commons who see her as their own. Teresa rises, turns to face her people, and raises her hand for silence. When she speaks, her voice carries the authority of someone who has earned, rather than inherited, her power. My first decree as your queen, the gallows in every market square will be torn down. Justice will no longer be spectacle, but sacred duty, carried out with deliberation and mercy. Some nobles shift uncomfortably, but the overwhelming approval from the commons drowns any dissent. My second decree, any lord who abuses his position to harm those beneath him will answer directly to the crown. There will be no more Lord Sigismunds preying on the vulnerable. More murmurs, but also nods from younger nobles like Lord James, who see the necessity of change. My third decree, education will be available to all children, noble and common alike. Every child will learn to read, write, and think. Knowledge will no longer be hoarded by the few, but shared among all. This causes real consternation among traditional nobles, but Teresa continues before objections can be voiced. And finally, I establish a new position, Speaker for the Commons. Elected by the people, this person will have direct access to the crown, ensuring that the voices of all are heard, not just those born to privilege. The crowd's response is deafening. She has just revolutionized the kingdom's structure in 4 sentences. Lord Blackwood's son, who had remained neutral during the trials, steps forward. Your Majesty, such changes, they're unprecedented. So was a common-raised woman becoming queen. Yet here we are. The nobles will resist. Then they'll be replaced by those who won't. Her voice carries steel beneath silk. The old ways died with my mother. It's time for something new. Challenges to the crown. The throne room. 6 months later. Teresa has transformed the space. Windows enlarged to let in more light, the throne itself made more accessible. Petitioners able to approach without crawling. She holds court 3 days a week, hearing directly from subjects rather than through intermediaries. Today brings a special challenge. Prince Alexander of Loire has arrived with a marriage proposal backed by half the French court. He's everything a royal suitor should be. Handsome, cultured, bringing promises of alliance and trade agreements that would benefit England enormously. Your Majesty, he says in accented English, France and England united through our marriage would create an empire unmatched in Christendom. United under whose rule? Teresa asks directly. Shared, of course. You would remain England's queen, while you become its king. A formality. Someone must lead armies, negotiate with other kings who might not respect a female ruler. Ah, so you'd be the real power while I become a figurehead? I wouldn't phrase it so crudely, but that's what you mean. Teresa stands, descending from her throne to face him at eye level. Prince Alexander, I've ruled for 6 months. In that time I've rooted out corruption, reformed justice, begun educating the commons, and managed all without a man's guidance. Why would I need one now? Because other kingdoms won't take you seriously without a king beside you. Then they'll learn to. England stands alone if necessary. Alexander's charm slips, revealing calculation. You can't remain unmarried forever, Your Majesty. You need an heir. Parliament now has the power to elect my successor from worthy candidates if I die without issue. The throne no longer depends solely on royal wombs. Revolutionary, he says with distaste. Necessary, she counters. Power shouldn't concentrate in blood alone, but be earned through merit. He leaves, clearly frustrated, but Teresa knows he won't be the last. The pressure to marry, to produce heirs, to conform to traditional queenship will be constant. Lord James approaches after Alexander's departure. Your Majesty, the nobles grow restless. Your reforms are happening quickly. Good. Gradual change allows corruption to adapt and survive. Swift change forces honesty. But without noble support, I have the people's support. That matters more. Thomas, now Lord Commander of her guard, enters urgently. Your Majesty, there's a disturbance in the market square. A mob has gathered, demanding to see you. Demanding? They say a new disease has struck the poor quarter. Children dying, they want their queen. Without hesitation, Teresa moves toward the door. Prepare my horse. Your Majesty, James protests. You can't simply ride into a mob. I'm not riding into a mob. I'm going to my people. The Healer Queen. The poor quarter of Winchester. An hour later. The streets are narrow, sewage runs in open channels, and the houses lean against each other like drunken soldiers. Disease spreads quickly here, where families of 10 share single rooms and clean water is a luxury. Teresa arrives not in a royal carriage, but on horseback, wearing practical clothes, carrying the medical supplies she insisted on maintaining even as queen. The crowd parts, some kneeling, others simply staring in amazement that their queen has actually come. A woman rushes forward, carrying a fevered child. Your Majesty, please, my son, he's dying. Teresa dismounts immediately, removing her gloves to feel the child's forehead. How long has he been ill? 3 days. The fever won't break. Teresa examines the boy with practiced hands, checking his throat, listening to his breathing. It's the sweating sickness. I've seen it before. She turns to Thomas. We need to quarantine this quarter immediately but humanely. Bring clean water, fresh linens, and send for every physician in the city. Your Majesty, Master Cromwell has arrived, breathing heavily. You shouldn't be here. The risk of infection is the same for me as for them. She's already begun preparing medicines from her supplies. I won't rule from behind castle walls while my people suffer. She works through the night, moving from house to house, teaching mothers how to cool fevers, showing them which herbs to use. She holds dying children, comforts grieving parents, and when a nobleman suggests she leave such work to servants, she responds sharply, "These are not subjects to be managed, they're people to be served." If you can't understand that, you don't belong in my government. By dawn, the epidemic is controlled. Not everyone survives, but far more than would have without intervention. As Teresa prepares to leave, exhausted and covered in the grime of a night's work, the crowd does something unexpected. They don't kneel. Instead, they reach out, touching her hands, her clothes, offering blessings and thanks. This is not the distant worship of a crown, but the genuine love of people who know their queen, sees them as human. An old man, dying of age rather than disease, beckons her close. "You're her," he whispers, "the one we've waited for." Her, the queen who remembers she was common, who knows that noble blood without noble action is just red water. He coughs, smiles. William would be proud. A partner, not a master. The castle gardens, 1 month later. Teresa tends to medicinal herbs she's planted. She insists on maintaining some connection to her old life. It's here that she meets Marcus, a young physician who arrived to help with a recent outbreak of fever. He doesn't recognize her at first, dressed as she is in simple clothes with dirt under her fingernails. "Excuse me, do you know where I might find more feverfew? The royal gardens are supposed to have—" "You're standing in them," Teresa says, amused. "Oh, I apologize. I thought, are you the gardener?" "Among other things." She hands him a bundle of feverfew. "You're the physician from Oxford. I heard you've developed new treatments for lung fever. You follow medical advances." He's surprised and pleased. "Most people find them boring. I find keeping people alive fascinating." They talk for an hour about herbs, treatments, theories of disease. Marcus is brilliant but humble, passionate about healing, but aware of how much he doesn't know. He treats her as an equal, debating and discussing without condescension. Finally, Thomas appears. "Your Majesty, the council awaits." Marcus goes white. "Your Majesty? You're the Queen? Did that change something about our conversation?" I spoke to you as if I argued with you about medical treatments." "Good. I needed someone to challenge my ideas, not agree because of my crown." Over the following weeks, Marcus becomes a regular presence. He helps establish new hospitals for the poor, develops sanitation improvements for the city, and always treats Teresa as a fellow healer first, queen second. When Lord James suggests Marcus might be inappropriate company for a queen, Teresa responds, "He sees me as a person, not a prize or political tool. That makes him the most appropriate company I've found." The proposal. The throne room, 3 months later. Teresa holds court, addressing disputes and hearing petitions. Marcus stands among the physicians, having become the royal medical advisor through merit rather than birth. A commotion at the doors. Lady Margaret's son, Richard, has arrived from France. At 13, he already shows his mother's calculating nature, arriving with an entourage that emphasizes his wealth and connections. "Your Majesty," he bows perfectly, "I come to claim what my mother promised, betrothal to the crown." The court gasps. Even locked in the tower, Margaret's influence reaches out. "Your mother is a convicted traitor," Teresa states. "Her promises mean nothing, perhaps. But I'm not my mother. I'm young, moldable, willing to be whatever kind of husband you require. And I have the support of half the French court." "A husband I require?" Teresa laughs. "Boy, I require nothing from you or anyone. You require an heir, a king to—" "If I wanted a king, I'd abdicate. I want a partner. Someone who sees me as Teresa first, Queen second. Someone who values healing over power, service over status." Her eyes find Marcus in the crowd, and suddenly she makes a decision that will scandalize the nobility but define her reign. "Lord Richard, you offer me political alliance, wealth, noble blood. But I've learned that noble blood without noble character is worthless. So I decline." She descends from the throne, walking through the parted crowd to where Marcus stands, frozen in shock. "Marcus of Oxford," she says loud enough for all to hear, "you've shown me that partnership based on shared values matters more than one based on shared bloodlines. You see the herb seller in the Queen and value both. Would you consider courtship?" "Your Majesty," he stammers, "I'm nobody. Common-born, no lands, no title. You're a healer who's saved hundreds. A man who treats queens and beggars with equal respect. That makes you nobility in the only way that matters." She extends her hand. "What say you?" Marcus looks at the shocked nobles, the furious Richard, the approving commons, then at Teresa's genuine smile. "I say yes." The court erupts. Scandal, approval, outrage, joy, all mixed together. Lord Morrison objects. "A queen cannot marry a commoner. This queen was raised a commoner. This queen changes the rules." She addresses the assembly. "For too long, marriage has been a political tool, bloodlines a currency. I choose differently. I choose based on character, compatibility, shared purpose." "The other kingdoms will mock us," another noble shouts. "Then we'll be too busy improving our people's lives to notice their mockery." Epilogue. 5 years hence, the throne room, transformed beyond recognition. Gone are the dark tapestries and cold stones. Windows flood the space with light, and the throne itself has been replaced with 2 chairs of equal height, one for the Queen, one for her prince consort. Queen Teresa holds court, but it's unlike any royal assembly in Europe. Merchants stand beside lords, craftsmen beside ladies. A child who discovered corruption in the grain stores receives equal recognition with a lord who negotiated a peace treaty. Marcus enters with their daughter, Catherine, 3 years old, who has her grandmother's red hair and her mother's green eyes. She runs to Teresa without ceremony, climbing into the Queen's lap mid-judgment. "Mama, Uncle Thomas says I can learn swords." "Did he now?" Teresa smiles at Thomas, now Lord Commander, and married to Agnes's niece. "And what did Aunt Agnes say?" "She said I should learn healing first, fighting second." Wise woman. Nsep. The business of court continues with Catherine present. Teresa insists their children see governance as service, not spectacle. Their son, barely a year old, is with his common-born wet nurse, who's treated as family rather than servant. Lord James, now Chancellor, presents the year's report. Crime is down by half. Literacy has tripled. The mortality rate from disease has dropped by 1/3, thanks to Prince Marcus's sanitation reforms. And the nobles' response. Some still grumble, but their children are different. Educated alongside commoners, they're developing perspective. A messenger arrives with news from the Tower. "Your Majesty, Lady Margaret requests audience. She claims to have information about remaining conspirators." "She's claimed that before," Marcus notes. "Always lies, trying to bargain for freedom." "Still, we should hear it," Teresa decides. "Bring her under full guard." Margaret arrives in chains, 5 years of imprisonment having aged her decades, yet her eyes still burn with ambition and hatred. "Niece," she says mockingly, "still playing queen, still serving England. What information do you claim to have? Release me, and I'll tell you. Tell me, and I'll consider it." Margaret laughs bitterly. "You've already won. The kingdom thrives, the people love you, even the nobles are accepting your reforms. But you've forgotten something crucial. Which is? You're mortal. One day you'll die. And then what? Your daughter inherits? A child with common blood on both sides? She'll inherit a kingdom that judges merit over blood. That's the point. You think you've changed human nature? The moment you're gone, the old ways will return. Noble blood will reassert itself. Your reforms will crumble. Perhaps, Teresa acknowledges. Or perhaps the seeds we've planted will have grown too strong to uproot. Every commoner who learns to read, every noble who befriends a peasant, every child who grows up seeing both as human, they're all seeds of permanent change." She stands, addressing not just Margaret, but the entire court. "The old world died with my mother. It took 20 years to bury it, but it's gone. The new world, where justice isn't bought, where mercy isn't weakness, where power serves rather than enslaves. That world is being born with every choice we make." "Pretty words," Margaret sneers, "but words don't last." "No," Teresa agrees, "but actions do, and we act every day to build better than we inherited." She nods to the guards. "Return Lady Margaret to her tower. Give her books, paper, ink. Let her write her version of history. Future generations should know what the old world looked like, so they never return to it." As Margaret is dragged away, still proclaiming the inevitable return of the old ways, Catherine tugs on her mother's sleeve. "Mamma, why is the angry lady so sad?" "Because she confused power with purpose, my love. She wanted to rule over people instead of serving them." "That's silly." From the mouths of babes, Teresa thinks, smiling. The court session ends with the traditional blessing, but Teresa adds her own words. "Remember, we are all common in our humanity, noble only in our actions. Go forth and serve." As the court disperses, Marcus takes her hand. "No regrets? You could have married a prince, ruled an empire." "I did marry a prince, one who earned the title through healing rather than inheriting it through blood. And we rule something better than an empire, a kingdom learning to be just." They walk to the window, looking out over Winchester. The market square thrives where gallows once stood. Children, noble and common, play together in the streets. The poor quarter has clean water and proper sewage. It's not perfect, but it's profoundly better. In the highest tower window, barely visible, Margaret watches the same scene with different eyes, seeing chaos where Teresa sees progress, weakness where Teresa sees strength. But Margaret is the past, growing fainter each day. Teresa and all she's built are the future, growing stronger with each sunrise. In the market below, old Agnes tells Catherine's story to a group of children. Once, a poor girl was going to be hanged. But when the king saw her necklace, everything changed. Not just for her, for all of us. Is it true? A child asks. Agnes points to the palace where their queen, once an herb seller, now rules with wisdom and compassion. Every word, child, every blessed word. The end.